Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Bruce?
Lionel?
Bruce?
Lionel.
Can you tell me if this... Oh, you know what? Let's ask Kelly, because that'll be good for a laugh.
Geez. Oh, man. You're going to have
for the comedic value, sure.
Yeah, for the comedic value, we're going to ask Kelly.
Oh, man. The ciphering, huh?
Hey, Kelly, can you tell me if this is the first podcast since the last podcast?
I believe it is because I was on the last podcast. No, I wasn't on. Well, maybe I was. Maybe. Oh, yeah, it is. It is.
Oh, Lord. Kelly, here's a hint. Look at the whiteboard right across from me in the studio where I marked on it in permanent marker.
I know. I can't see it because I got my glasses on, but I got a new prescription, so I can't see it. Oh, there you
go.
A new prescription.
Yeah, I went to the eye doctor the other day.
Uh-huh.
I'm using my old. These are like the glasses I have are like the old glasses. One glass prescription.
I think I need a pair of thicker glasses.
Yes, that's what's starting to look like.
So okay, this is part 4 of our 37-part trilogy, 42-part trilogy of the Ken McCorry story. Somebody's phone is on. I think it's mine.
Sounds like it could be yours.
I think that's mine. I love that. Okay, so Bruce.
Yes.
You've never been here during the Ken McCorry
I have not, because I think probably for a good part of it, I was either in England or Scotland.
Yeah, you were somewhere. Not here.
I was out of country, as the expression goes.
Yes, exactly. And
I was even out of continent, as the expression.
Yeah, you were out of continent. And so anyways, what we decided, here's the backstory. Right. You know how I'm basically disorganized.
Really?
Oh, you know what's really cute? Doug's here. Doug Watts is here with us too.
Yes.
And he's excited because, you know how last year we had Iowa Scaled Engineering for our 4th table there at the old AML booth at Springfield?
Yes, indeed, yes.
Well, when I was sitting on the porch at Crescent this year talking to Alex Lang and Mr. Watts, somehow the conversation got around to, they were thinking about going to Springfield, and because Doug is kind of helping a little bit, helping Alex, who owns the Station Inn. That's stationinpa.com, and they're in Crescent, Pennsylvania. And I said, hey, they were thinking of going to Springfield. And I said, well, hey, because I was pretty sure, Michael Peterson, if you're listening to this, I apologize if I was wrong. But I somehow had a feeling that they weren't going to come to Springfield this year. So I said to Alex, I said, well, heck, if you want, you can be our you can be our guest person at the AML booth. And so they jumped all over that. And then Doug, who's helping him, wants to, help organize it. And he thinks that I'm organized. He thinks that like I answer emails and I'm like right on top of things.
Has Doug ever met you before?
Well, briefly, a couple of times.
Okay, briefly must be the key there, because otherwise he would not harbor those thoughts whatsoever. But they're laughing. Why are they laughing?
Yeah, I have the ability to do some things. See, here's the backstory, Doug. Let me fill you in. I have been self-employed since I was 25. And which is like 40 some odd years. And for 35 of those 40 some odd years, I've had one person who is my personal secretary, whose name is Barb, who basically does everything for me and keeps me organized. And I have never felt comfortable making her work on the podcast. Although she has volunteered a few times, I've never felt comfortable making her be responsible for the things about the podcast. So I'm relying on myself, which is, again, Kelly and Bruce will tell you, is a really bad idea.
It has its moments.
Yes, it does have its moments.
And so yeah, Doug, I'm excited about having you guys come to and be at our booth in the Springfield. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I showed Alex what our booth looks like. I told him what we expect, and good luck if you send me emails. I'm a texting guy. Text I usually answer pretty quick.
Okay.
Text is my thing, because you know what I like about text? If somebody says, "Hey, I'm doing X," and it's something I agree with, all I got to do is give them like a thumbs up.
Exactly.
And then I can move on with my day. Whereas I have this horrible problem with email where it's like if somebody sends me an email, Doug, when you send me an email, I feel like the way I have to answer it is, "Hi, Doug. Hope you're having a good day. Things are going pretty good here. Yes, I got the," and it's kind of like I feel like I'm writing a letter to everybody. So it's like, that's why I'm a texting guy, because you don't have to write long.
See, back in the day, you would have been a telegraph kind of guy.
Yeah.
Telegram kind of guy. Short and sweet.
Yeah. Like if I'd been on the Titanic, it would have been simple. We're sinking.
Yeah.
Stop.
Send help. Stop.
Stop. And but you know what my problem is? I would have always worried when I'd put send help, we're sinking, stop. Then I think, well, do they think that the stop means don't bother? And then I'd be like, no, it means come on. Anyways.
Oh, help.
Help. How do you think the show's going so far, Doug?
I think it's great.
Good answer, Doug.
So how
does it have potential, Doug?
Yeah. So now that we're it's Springfield is basically only
table buddies.
We're table buddies. Yeah. Now that Springfield is basically only 2 months, like 10 weeks away. How do you feel like the arrangements are going?
As far as for the station inn?
Yeah. No, for your hotel room.
For Bob's Burgers.
Yeah. For Bowser, the booth next to us.
Yeah, Bowser.
Doug, are we going to have a problem?
I don't think so.
Okay. So how do you think the arrangements are going so far?
I think they're good. I've been in touch with Alex, and we're getting a game plan together for that. And thanks to Ken McCorry, I've been attending that show since I missed a couple of them, but I've been attending that show with a group from the Philly area since 1998. So we've seen a lot of cool things evolve there. And Ken and I always have a good time, eat a lot of good food, get a lot of laughs. But yeah, I'm looking forward to being part of the team there with the folks from the station inn. So like I said, been in touch with Alex, putting together a game plan, and can't wait.
Are you looking forward to being part of any other team?
The AML team.
There you go. Now we're getting somewhere.
Boy, now he's got it.
Yeah, exactly. And what's the number one thing you got to remember at the Springfield show when you're at the booth? What's the number one thing you got to remember?
A modeler's life.
No, don't sit in my chair. Don't sit in my chair. All right, let's get Ken in here. Ken, come on in from the green room. I know you're just outside the studio. You're with your ear against the door. Just come on in.
Here I come.
All right.
All right, here I am.
All right, so this is part 4. This is the wrap-up of the 47-part trilogy of the Ken McCorry story. These we started airing these podcasts, these 4 podcasts. The first one was the first Monday in October. So basically, October and November have been Ken McCorry months at the old AML studios.
Yep. Yeah, the first one was done in stone, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, it was like the Flintstones.
Yeah, that's right. We chiseled it out. That's right. Has your life changed at all since these podcasts?
A little bit in certain ways, yeah.
Positive or negative?
Huh?
Positive or negative? Yeah.
How does it? Well, above ground and moving around, as I tell people.
Oh, there you go. All right. So, we're not actually going to do the entire podcast tonight. We're going to do most of it, and then we're going to, towards the end, we're going to stop, and we're going to come back later on to finish the podcast. And is it okay, Mr. McCorry, if I tell everybody why?
Yes, no problem at all.
Okay, so we were going to do this podcast on a different date, and then we had to reschedule. Actually, the truth is, I didn't want Rich on here. Rich Wisniewski, the Wiz. So I just scheduled it to when he was visiting his mother in the Carolinas.
Oh man.
So anyways, we were going to do this podcast on a particular day, and then Mr. McCorry called me and to tell me that unfortunately he has got to go to the hospital because they discovered a mass on your liver, cancer, I guess, and you got to have that removed.
Now, kidney.
Okay.
Right kidney.
What did I say?
You said liver.
Oh. Does it really matter?
I don't want the liver. You only got one liver. We have two kidneys.
Okay.
So.
Do you want me to help with the operation?
I don't believe so.
Well, if you change your mind, let me know.
Yeah.
I will do that. I'll let you know. I'll let you know after it's done.
You can sit up in the theater with a box of Junior Mints.
There you go.
Oh, jeez.
So, are you going to be okay?
Yeah, it should be. It was caught. It was caught on a CAT scan by accident, and I wasn't. I have no issues at all. And it was just an accident. Oh, by the way, when we were looking for this, there was no issues with that, but we did find this. And so, it looks like it's been caught before it causes any issues. How's that?
Okay.
Beautiful.
So they were looking for the penknife you swallowed.
Yes, that could be it. So, I got to look out for little pieces of metal that could be in there, so you never know.
Right,
so.
Exactly. They were looking for a KD coupler spring that you swallowed.
Yeah. Actually, the Mark 16. Remember those old ones that were a pain in the butt to try and stay in the box? Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you, over all these years, building such a big layout? Like, do you ever have... couplers made me think of that because our buddy Scott, the table master lister. That's something else, Doug. You got to be careful of when you get to Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Lister, his official AML name is the table master. He's in charge of the booth. Don't piss him off.
Okay.
No.
All right. I'll be there, so I'll keep that in mind.
He has a short fuse and liable to launch a bucket of cheese balls at your head.
He's from South Carolina, and he's mad when he speaks faster than...
He speaks firmly at you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I really wish you hadn't put that there. Scott is a great guy. So Scott does all the work. He looks after the tables and everything, and he's awesome. And you'll be right beside Uncle Dave Abelie's booth, and beside our booth. You're going to have a great time. You're going to have a ball.
Cool.
And so I'm looking forward to having you guys part of the whole rigmarole. So Ken, as my endless quest of trying to figure out how a guy builds a layout of this size, like that would be a question I would ask. Like, there must have been something as time went along, because the layout is basically 30 years old now. So as time went along, there must have been something that happened in model railroading. There's some sort of piece of equipment where you felt, geez, every car needs this. Like, yeah. So, how did you handle such a job on such a massive layout?
Well, I knew what I wanted to build. When I started back in 1992, I wanted to build the Buffalo line, and which I succeeded in doing. And in '96, I added an addition to the building. So actually, I added a section north of where I had stopped originally and included Buffalo. So I actually model from the Harrisburg terminal area all the way to Buffalo. And over the years, I grew up on the Pensy, on the 4-track main in Berwyn with electrics. I thought a couple times about maybe modeling that area, and some of the errors that I remember as a kid. But the Buffalo line always interested me. And, when the urge to change pops up, the realization when you stand up there and look at 3,120 square foot of model railroad and the amount of work that went into it, and the age that I happen to be, which I'll be 75 this year, start to realize that I'm not going to tear this thing down and build another one. And so what I have done over the years, I've changed eras. It's always been the Buffalo line. When I first built it, it was the late Pensy era, which was 1962 to up till Penn Central came about in 68. And the eras seem to have a life of anywhere from 5 to 7, 8 years.
So
and then,
are you like an organized guy, or like say, I don't know, like as time has gone on, like, are you an organized guy? Would you say you're organized?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I mean, my job in life, I worked in a family business. We had a family oil business, and it lasted for 89 years. And I was the oldest of the third generation in the business. And I was the nuts and bolts of the third generation. I drove every piece of equipment we had, from straight trucks, tractor trailers, you name it, I drove it. I built them, I worked on them, I painted them. I managed the bulk plants we had. We had 2 bulk plants with 500,000 gallon tanks. I managed them. That's just
Right.
what I did. So you had to be organized in order to do that. We had 50 employees. At one time, at the largest, I had 58 pieces of equipment to keep after. So you had to be organized.
So, when you started this layout, were metal wheels a thing? Like, or did you already, all your cars have metal wheels and and good couplers and all that stuff? Or was it like...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I had KDs from long ago. The first metal wheels I used to use were KDs.
Okay.
And then you discovered later on that bit by bit, once the blackening wore off, that they became great little dirt traps. And there was always cleaning. And then I would guess when I moved here, and that would have been in late 91, and we started, say, on this one here in 92, I discovered Intermountain wheels. And considering I've had different eras, I've had, cars that I've had here that I've sold, I've probably gone through, I don't know, probably 6,000-8,000 Intermountain wheels over the years, I bet. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have I have CTC. It's a CTC system with signaling. So each car also, you make your own resistor wheel sets, and the Intermountains are fairly easy to do that with. So they seem to be a little bit heavier. They track well. They get dirty like everything else, but they not as bad. So you had to be organized, to the point. Most of my cars have a shop date on the car card. And the idea is every so often, we'll take I'll tell the yard master, say at Northumberland, I want you to pull 25 cars out, put them in a shop train, and send them to Buffalo. And we send it up to Buffalo, and I have a car shop up there in Buffalo. And what the idea is, the train stops, and they'll put the cars in, and in between the sessions, I'll pull the cars out, clean the wheels, adjust the couplers, glue back on the stirrup steps that are breaking off, or the whatever else needs to be done. You mark it on the car card. It's shopped as of this date. And then the next session, that train leaves Buffalo, goes back to Northumberland, and enters the railroad. So, that's how I actually have sort of a preventative maintenance on my fleet to some extent.
So when you started changing over wheels, like how many hours? Okay, I don't think we've asked this question. In fact, I know we haven't. Like, you retired at a reasonably early age, and you've been able to,
did.
And you were pretty much most of the time, I think you said 96 maybe is when you retired.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so since 1996, you've been working on the railroad full time. But like, when I say full time, how many hours a week would you work on the layout?
And it depends. Yeah. I tend to go in binges.
Okay.
I'll tell you, the one big binge I had is when COVID hit in 2020, and I knew I wasn't going to have any once you get a railroad operating, you're really limited, without shutting down the op sessions, how much time you can take the railroad out of service. And so in 2020 happened, it's like, oh, well, I said, some of the scenery looks to be 25 years old, and you go into a little spray bottle and you spray some of your the thousands of puffball trees I got, and all you stand back and go, these are a lot brighter than the rest of them. And so basically, 2020, I started at one end of the railroad and literally upgraded, I don't know how many thousand square feet of scenery, just freshened stuff up, dusted stuff off, finished some stuff here and there. That's the maintenance end of it. I also, in between that time is when I also, I changed an era. So, since I had the time to do it, but, yeah, I mean, it's.
So when you say binges though, like would
Yeah. Oh, I mean, sometimes I'll be up there. Yeah, I'm a night person. Since I but that's I don't have a job I have to be at in the early morning. I'm a person who usually likes to work from usually after dinner till a couple times I've walked out of this barn to the house and the sunlight's starting to peak. So it might be 4:30 or 4:45 in the morning. And I'll go to sleep till noon and get up and go back at it. So it's, but normally, I usually spend I'd say probably 15, 20 hours a week right now and the norm.
Okay.
So a lot of times I'm not even upstairs. I may be downstairs working on equipment or building a building, or I'll bring a building down here and repair things or redo things or upgrade things. A lot of times, every time I change an era, I got to change paperwork. So I make adjustments to the paperwork. When we have a session, I always tell the guys, especially the yard masters and stuff, I says, if you have any suggestions, let me know them. And, sometimes that requires paperwork changes. So I always make sure the paperwork has been changed. And this railroad's big enough where I discovered you decide, I got to change this one piece of paperwork, and then you realize you got to change another 12 behind it.
Yeah, like that would drive me nuts. It would be like, holy mackerel. So that's kind of a good segue into our first question. Although first hey Doug, I got two things for you.
Okay.
Move your microphone out just like a quarter of an inch. Okay, have you done that?
Yes, I have.
Do you have a Sharpie handy? There's a mark on your face where it is. The microphone. And be ready, Doug, because I have. Is Ken a hard ass?
No.
No? Because I'm kind of surprised your last operating session, you canceled it because you couldn't fill a couple of the key jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that sounds like you're a real hard ass to me.
No, it's just that, when you require a minimum really of 30 people, and my call list is 54, and, there's a lot of other things going on, especially in the summertime, people are on vacation, they have family things to do. I have a bunch of guys that actually run at a railroad in the morning on Saturday morning and early afternoon and then come here. So if he decides not to run, then that is like, well, do we want to go down there just for the one versus the two layout? So it's there's a lot of things that can affect it. So
yeah, because you have guys coming from as far away as Maine. But would you say the majority of the guys are within a 50-mile radius? 100 miles?
I'd say 100-mile radius. To be honest with you.
Okay.
So, I mean, we have a couple. We have Philman A comes down. He's up there. Like, was it the Bronx? I guess it is.
Yeah.
And I got guys from the Williamsport area. That's 3 hours away. So like the furthest, I have one guy from Maine. So
yeah. And so Williamsport, New York, you mean? Williamsport, Pennsilvania?
About 3 miles. It's about 3 miles northwest of here. 3 miles. 30. That's 3 hours. Excuse me.
What's Williamsport, like that little World Series, the Little League World Series? Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. We have a guy there. We have a guy that lives just very near Williamsport. His name is Brad. He's actually kind of a pain in the ass, but I bet you he'd love to operate your railroad.
Mm-hmm.
And if I put him in touch with you, would you give him a shot?
Yeah, I'd give it a shot.
Yeah, because he's in the Williamsport area, so he might know those guys.
All right.
So okay. So let me ask you this question: how many key jobs do you have that have to be filled, and how many guys are interchange? Like, how many guys are qualified for all of the key jobs?
nobody's qualified for all of them.
Really?
No. It's, I mean, I've got 2 dispatchers as far as, working the signal system and working a location that's not a yard. I have 2 dispatchers, Case and Lyco. Each of them handle about half of the buffalo line. And in the middle of Lyco's territory, I have a Renovo operator. And they handle the Renovo yard, but it's the base for the helper operations to push the trains up over Keating Summit. And that's why I have that separate from Lyco, because that way, when they deal with putting the helpers on and off, and he's got, another 100 and so miles of track to keep track of. He didn't have to worry. All he has to know is when the train gets in, when it's ready to go with the helpers attached.
Have you ever thought about having, say, 2 or 3 or 4 guys that are qualified on all the jobs, or you just never bothered?
No, well, I do have. I mean, I probably have for the dispatcher's jobs. I probably have a total of maybe 5, maybe 6 guys that can run that.
Okay.
And I usually tell them if I assign it, because I usually assign the task before the session. But I tell the guys, and they say, listen, if you're tired of doing this and you want to run, it says, who the other guys are that are good for you. If you want to switch off, go ahead and switch off. It doesn't make any mind to me. But as long as somebody's there to cover it. And, the yards are the same thing. They have the yard masters at yards. They have to know the physical plant, but also when something comes in, what does it set out? What does it pick up? Who to call, and such like that. So it takes a number of sessions for somebody to really get a good grasp of what they're doing in any of these positions.
So does seniority play a role in it at all?
Somewhat. I mean, there are a number of guys that have been here since the beginning when we built this thing. So they there's no seniority list, so to speak. But I know who's been here, and if they just said, "Hey, I want to do this," I said, "Think you can handle it?" They said, "Yeah, so go do it." So, they earned it. So, you get a lot of, but usually when new guys show up, you usually put them on a road crew with somebody else, because the main line, if you get a train that runs from Harrisburg all the way to the Mineral Springs Yards in Buffalo, it's about 1,400 feet, and it's a lot to remember. And, place names. I mean, the railroad's pretty well documented on the fascia, but still, okay, you're good to here. And I go, well, where the hell is here? Well, it's over there on that one back wall, and it takes a while for, a road crew to really figure out. Some people pick it right up, no issues at all. And there's other people that they come in and they'll run the railroad and they say, oh, okay, I'll see you next time. And I swear when they walk down the stairs, they pull a cord and everything they learned that night runs out the bottom of their pant leg. And every time they show up, it's like they've never been here before. And, so sometimes you start questioning your sanity. It's like, okay, well, where's Williamsport? It's the same place it was the last time you were here. It hasn't moved. It's, oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
So, Doug, do you have a cord in your pants and you let everything out?
No, I try to keep that hole sewed up. So
yeah.
Okay,
but Doug knows what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Well, that's a good question, though. So, first off, Doug, how many jobs are you qualified for? Do you think?
Let's see. At least 3.
And those are
yard master at Renova, local road crew, and helper crew.
Yeah, see, that's what I want. I want to run the helpers, but he won't let me. Here's the deal. First time I come, if you won't let me run the helpers, I don't want to. I want to be on a road crew by myself and gum the whole thing up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, there's another one there. Helpers. I mean, I probably have 4 or 5 guys. We usually run 2 helper crews, and you gotta, if you're pushing an ore train, you're pushing 70 jennies up, a grade, and the grade, I vary the grade. It's 2.2% here, it's 1% here, it flattens out here, then it goes back to 2%, the worst, and there are some sections of 3%. And you've got 3 or 4 6 sections on the front, 70 of the old Stewart Pensy ore jennies, which are the cast metal ones. cabin car, and then you got 2 more or maybe 3 more 6-axles on the back pushing, you got to watch what you're doing. And, because otherwise you find out about either string lining or compression. Compression is when you pile them up in a big pile, and string lining is when they're all laying over on their sides. So
it sounds more like a 4-cylinder engine: suck, squeeze, bang, blow.
Basically, it is. It is. I mean, we have run. Every so often the helper crew. I know we have a couple of younger people, and I'm walking around the railroad, sort of being the supervisor, and I see this ore train going up the hill, and in the middle of the ore train, there's this pair of 6-axles, and I go like, and there's another pair on the back. And so this thing's, it's going up over the mountain, probably with a minimum of at least 7, maybe 8 6-axles on it. And I watch, and it goes up over the top and comes back down. And the helper crews are sort of looking at me like, well, he's not pissed. And, and I said, that worked pretty good. He said, yeah. He says, now you got to figure out how to get that the mid-train set out. But, it's sort of like the real world in some respects.
Yeah. That's one of the great things about model railroading. When you're doing the helpers, do you ever use Rapido trains?
Fast track the model railroading fun.
Jesus.
Okay.
You know what, Bruce? We forgot again. There were like 32 minutes into this thing. Let's try that one again. Do you ever use Rapido trains?
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
Yes, I have. I do have an ABA set of Pennsy FAs we use every so often.
There you go. I have a really good question. I think you're an ideal guy to answer that, to give your opinion about this question. And Doug, you're an old guy too, so you can feel free to answer this one as well. As you've operated this railroad for 30 years, you say you got a couple of young guys. Have you noticed changes in the hobby that you notice that are reflected in your model railroad, like as with the client, with the clientele? Like, have you noticed the hobby changing at all?
Yes. I mean, a lot of people say, well, there's not enough young people in the hobby, but even when I was a young person, they used to say the same thing back in the 60s. It's not a widespread hobby when you're young, especially when you discover, as you get older, you discover, cars or women or sports or something else. But no, I have a number of people here. They bring their sons along, and the sons are great operators. Dave Weber is one of my operators. His son, unfortunately, TJ, who passed away this last January, he was one of my better operators. I mean, he was literally, I could put him anywhere. And, so we have a number of younger people that show up here. So they're around. There's never been large quantities of them. I don't think their percentages really ever change. But I think a lot of the technology, DCC, the signaling system, all the, even like what we're doing here, it does. That's their world, and the more you show up in their world, I think the more interest they will have about it.
What exactly are we doing here, anyways? Okay, after these 4 episodes, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the. You're like what? You're like outside. You're in the suburbs or the burbs or like outside of Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, about 30 miles west of Philadelphia.
Okay, go Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Go Flyers.
Yep.
Go Phillies.
Sixers.
Go Phillies. Sixers. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sure there's lots of people that are listening to this podcast. Bruce, do you think anybody's listening to this podcast?
I think 1 or 2 listen, don't they?
And when they're listening, do you think the people that are listening, do you think they own any Rapido trains?
Your fast track to model railroading fun, and I bet they do.
If it's L, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
How would somebody contact you? Like, if they would like the opportunity to come by, or perhaps even maybe eventually become part of the crew? Like, is there opportunity for people to contact you and become,
Yes.
and for a chance to be part of the crew?
Yes, there is. So, yeah, I mean, I every year I do have open houses here in November. Yeah, I have open houses in November, usually at least twice. And during the year, I'll get a call from some people. They always hear about. There's this guy up there that's got this barn full of trains, and has this big train layout. And so I have people here all the time that come and visit, and I'll run a train. Usually, a lot of the kids, I with DCC, I have NCE. And I'll say, here, you want to run this train? And the kid looks at me and says, here. And I show him how this works. And they're off running the train. I mean, when I was a young kid, I was shy. And there was a neighbor of my parents that I always heard had this unbelievable model railroad. And I was always too shy to walk up to his front door and knock on it and say, could I see your trains? Never did. And I sort of told myself, I said, well, this guy has this big layout and you don't want to see it. I said, no, if you guys, I want people to see this. This is not unapproachable.
Okay. And how do people, so is your open house, is it part of a layout tour, or is it just an open house of your layout?
No, there's an open house between Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and Delaware.
Oh yeah.
And there's usually close to 100 layouts on it. And it's open all during the month of November, which is Model Railroad Month.
How would people find that? How would people find that? Where a web?
Actually, if you Google Model Railroad open houses, and you'll see one there that lists Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey. Right now, if I remember correctly, we have until the 24th of September to put your dates in for when you're going to be open. And then once they get that done, usually around the middle of October is when they come out with the list, and it shows, it has all the listings. It has maps. There's a number of outdoor railroads, the G scale, garden scale, that are open, I think, towards the end of October. But, and what a bunch of us do usually is like, there's a couple other layouts that are near me. So we sort of try and be open on the same day. So the idea is that people can, in an afternoon, you're usually open from, say, maybe 12 to 5 or something like that, or 1 to 5, that you give the people the opportunity to see 2 or 3 different layouts in an afternoon.
So it says here, hey, you know what, guys, while he was talking, I did that all by myself. We didn't need, we didn't need elevator music. How do you think this is going so far, Doug?
I think it's going well.
Okay. Hey, Kelly, you understand the basic principle of a podcast, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. Ken,
yes.
On the lines of your open house, did you participate in any of the operating groups that run in that area? Like the
I did have ProRail here a number of years ago, but recently I have not really. I mean, well, there's a couple other railroads around here that I operate at. So there's 2 Conrail layouts. There's actually 2 Western Maryland railroads. So there's about another 4 or 5. If I want to do a little bit of traveling, I haven't been up to Jim Herzog's in a number of years, his Reading layout, but I've run up there years ago. And Larry Reynolds, when Harold Worthwine was still around, I used to go up to Harold's and run on his.
That would have taken you. How long would it have taken you to get to Harold's?
It was usually probably a 2-hour trip, maybe 2.5 hours.
Right, yeah.
So,
wasn't he somewhere near the Delaware Water Gap?
Yes. Yeah. It was Blairstown.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look at that. I got lucky enough to be there once. Yeah. So, anyways, this site he's talking about is modelrailroadopenhouse.com. That's pretty straightforward. modelrailroadopenhouse.com, and it has all these layouts listed, and it's run by, and it has a schedule, which is really cool. And it says your open house team, Karen Darling and Fran Giacomo. Do we know any, Doug or Ken? Do we know anything of these 2 people?
No, these are the people that originated this was years ago, and I knew them. But these people wanted to sort of taken it over and actually have modernized it to where it's online. Years ago, it used to be you go to the hobby shop, which still existed, and you go, yeah, you have any of the open house info?
Okay.
And they'd hand you this packet of paper, and it had everybody listed and the dates and the times, and there usually maps on the back. So, but now it's online. So,
by the way, if he can't get a hold of Ken via email or any other way, his personal cell phone number is 645-432-9031, and he'll answer the phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
right.
Feel free to call. And you know what? Tell Ken Lionel sent you.
Yeah, call collect.
Yeah, call collect. All right, so we have some questions from fans of the podcast. And this first one is actually kind of an interesting one, so don't just blow me off here with this question. We've kind of covered a lot of this, but it comes from a fella in Great Britain, across the puddle, as he says. And his name's James Beeston. And he says, I'd love to know what it's like living with a layout that size. How did he keep the motivation up to complete the layout? Being from across the puddle, where the big layout is 10 feet by 15 feet, it's something I am fascinated to hear.
I guess I don't know. I mean, there are times when I don't do anything to it. I mean, there are down times. I'm not up there, every day, every week. There have probably been times when I don't go up there for 2 weeks. Operating sessions will tend to make you do things. Either fix things that need to be fixed or get ready for the next session. Scenery, you do scenery for a while. I have a lot of very large industrial structures. I got into the building buildings for a while. Okay, it's time to, weather rolling stock. I'll do that in mass quantities. I've never really, every so often the enthusiasm will wane, but it always comes back. And, that's
the thing I notice about model railroading. Like once it gets in your blood, you can't get it out.
Yeah.
It's like you say, like that's an interesting thing to hear, though. I mean, it sounds like having a layout that's 3,200 square feet is no different than having a 2 foot by 10 foot shelf layout. When the enthusiasm is there, you work on it. And when the enthusiasm wanes, you go do something else for a while. But it always, no matter how hard you try to get out, it always drags you back in.
Oh, yeah, it does. It does. So, and the other thing, too, is a lot of times Walthers will come out with a brand new industrial building. And you go like, oh, wow. And so, usually what I do with a lot of their buildings, I'll buy 2 or 3 of them and make one building out of it. And I've got some steel mill buildings up there that are actually over 8 feet long as one building. And, it's okay. So you start, I'll redo this area here. You redo this and that sort of goes, well, okay, well, I think I'll redo over here a little bit. And next thing you know, that leads to, I like this new road material. I think, let me try it here. So, there's always a lot of the new stuff, a lot of times replaces a lot of the labor intensive stuff, which took you hours and hours and hours. And now maybe in, a few hours you can do, you can get a lot done.
Yeah, so, that's what's changed. Probably one of the main things that's changed. Because I feel like there's more and more layouts coming on stream rather than less and less.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, like it seems like I'm convinced this hobby is going to become much more mainstream because there's such a camaraderie with the 90% of the people or 95% of the people. I mean, there's, the 1 or 2% that just like to be mean and look at the negative, but the positives of being part of this hobby far outweigh anything else. And I think that's a really important. So what would you, as a guy that's built a 3,200 foot layout, and say somebody's like looking, they've moved into a new house and they've got a 24 foot by, 20 foot space, which is a relatively large layout. Mm-hmm. What would be like your one tip to somebody that's going to build a large layout before they start?
I would say sort of figure what you want to do with it first. a lot of people said, well, I always like this area, so I want to model this area. And I said, well, is this going to hold your interest? Yeah. I mean, are you interested in operation? Some people are, some people aren't. A lot of people say, well, I'm going to build this, and I like this Atlas track plan, but I'm just going to take it from a 4x8 and I'm going to make it into a 16x32, but it's the same basic track plan. And it's they'll run it and they'll run it and run it. And I always tell people, I says, well, if you tend to build spaghetti bowls, they're fun for a while, but then they start to get boring. And then it's like, well, I think it's time to change. And then you tear everything down and you build it new again. I said, the nice thing I found, at least about operations, is that I think it tends to give a model railroad, an operating one, a lot longer life. And today it's so much easier, as you said before, it's so much easier to build a quality railroad that will operate well. And not necessarily inexpensive, but the thing is, years ago, you had to be the craftsman in order to get everything to do what you wanted to do, which meant usually there was a minimal number of equipment, minimum number of track. Today, with the turnouts that are out there, the control systems that are out there, the stuff that's available, it's so much easier to build a operations level quality model railroad than it used to be.
Yeah, and then I was actually having a conversation, and I'm kind of interested in everybody's opinion about this, except you, Kelly, of course. But you already knew that. Kelly, that was rude, and I apologize.
Oh, it's okay. I forgive you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was actually talking to our little buddy Lauren James today, and we actually had this conversation that nowadays, for somebody starting out in a hobby, you can have a pretty fun 4x8 layout because of the quality of locomotives. You can do so much with a locomotive that you couldn't do that. You can make a 4x8 layout be pretty interesting nowadays as opposed to what it would have been 20 or 5 or 30 years ago. What do you think about that, Doug? Because you operate on a lot of layouts.
Yeah, I would agree with you due to the quality of the equipment. And for me, the quality of equipment, as well as a lot more options as far as research. And that's one of the things that I've picked up on when I go to the various RPM meets, learning from other folks, the different options that they have pursued as they do their research, and they're willing to pass that on to other folks. So you can get in and do the research and make your layout as historically significant as possible. Or if you're really into operations, like you said, going back to the point about the quality equipment, rolling stock motive power, track components. Yeah, it's definitely a lot different. And as Ken has said, to those of us who are part of his regular team, it's a great time to be in the hobby.
Yeah, it seemed like 20 years ago was the golden era of model railroading, and now it seems like the golden era of model railroading is today.
Yeah.
I think the golden era is moving along as we go.
Yeah. What do you think?
Definitely.
What do you think about that, Kelly? I mean, you're a big guy into your club. You're so. And are you the chairman of the board?
No, another year.
In a year, you'll be the chairman of the board for
my turn should be coming up soon
for the Medford Railroad Park.
For the railroad park, but I'm vice president of 2 clubs now.
Yeah, well, of course,
and president.
Yeah.
And president of the other.
Yeah, of course. Kelly is the president or vice president of every club within a 102-mile radius of Medford, Oregon.
Yeah, it's not much. It's not much. It's like
that doesn't matter.
Wasteland.
That doesn't matter. And but you will be chairman of the board.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it in New York, New York. These vagabonds.
I love that. That makes me laugh. So, okay, Kelly, I'm interested in your thought because you guys have a large and well-built club layout, and you're involved in so many aspects of model railroad clubs. And do you feel like, I really felt like it was a really good point that with a 4x8 layout nowadays, you could really get a lot more enjoyment out of it than you could have 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and it doesn't even have to be 4x8. It could be a shelf layout, a narrow with switching in it. And one of the things I noticed, it hasn't been a while since it was before the pandemic. We had enough members to do it, but we used to put the kids layout up, which was nothing but a double loop with a crossover. And the kids that would come through the layout would see that, and they get to operate the train themselves, and they would just have fun watching it go around in circles.
Right.
So you're sort of, you put yourself as a group, we put ourselves in a position where we sort of plant the seed with people.
Yeah.
And hopefully, maybe if they live in the area, they'll come down and volunteer and become active members, or they go to some other area of the country and become active members in someone else's group or club.
Yeah. Bruce, can I ask you a hypothetical question?
Certainly.
Hypothetically,
Yes.
this is strictly hypothetically. If you were the NMRA's North American director at large,
Yes,
and you guys were having one of your meetings where you all get free trips to go and stuff, and you were sitting around, is this something that you would think that would be something that maybe possibly you would discuss with the other guys, that in today's model railroading world, people can get a lot more enjoyment out of small layouts than they ever could before?
I think you're absolutely right on that, because we have certainly, you look at the press of late, and you look at the proliferation of small layout groups on Facebook and stuff, that there's a lot of interest in smaller and small layouts, and also a lot of interest in shelf layouts rather than big massive ones. And I think people are realizing that with a small layout, let's say a room 10 by 10, and you've got two walls of it, so an L-shaped shelf layout or something like that, you can do a lot with that in a space. And if you look particularly at some of the things that Lance Mintime has done with smaller layouts, that he's designed them, and he's written the books on how to design them and build them, operate them, and build in all the various things that when you go to operate it, you can easily spend 3 hours or so operating the layout, because of the way he's designed it, the way he approaches things realistically, and that type of thing. So certainly smaller layouts are, I think, becoming more popular, because some people may begin on when they start a layout, and then if they look at, oh geez, my basement's 30 by 40, I'll never get anything done, and they sit there and do nothing. Whereas if you look at, I've got a spare room here, I can build something there and have something up and running and do work on it in not a bunch of time. And if I get done with that, I've learned a bunch, I'll rip it down and start again. So I think smaller is a great approach in becoming more popular.
If I had a smaller layout, I would run it with Rapido trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
I saw what you did there when I was taking a drink. Yes.
Yeah.
but certainly, yes. You know which one would be ideal for smaller switching layouts?
Yeah, there you go. The 44.
Their new G44 tonners.
Oh, yeah.
They'll sell thousands of container loads of that.
Hey, Bruce, don't you say nothing. Hey, Kelly, you know what would be really cool is to get one of those 44 tonners from Rapido trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
If it's N, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
Wow, he said that kind of sexy, didn't he?
He kind of like he was doing the late night show or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
Bruce Kelly with Pillow Talk here.
Yeah, exactly.
Model railroading fun.
Yeah. Hey, Ken, while we were having that discussion, I just came up with a great question for you. And then we'll move on to some more viewer questions. Have you ever considered, in all your time in the last 30 years, probably in the last 10, I would think, even more, have you ever considered building like a small diorama or a small shelf layout or a small anything other than?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would that be? Any thoughts?
Probably an industrial switching. When Buffalo upstairs is a fairly large end of the railroad, and during a normal operating session, my Buffalo area takes usually for 5 to 6 people to operate. And, I got a steel mill up there, but a bunch of other industries. And with all the, I do I do have a garage building out back. And at one time, I used to race Corvettes many years ago. And at one time, I had a couple Corvettes in there and a trailer and everything else. And now I'm down to one, which I've had for 51 years now.
Wow.
But
is it red? Is it red?
No, actually, it's Sunoco blue.
Oh, cool.
So,
very cool.
Yeah. So it's, I
hard,
bought it.
Hard top?
Yeah, it's a coupe, 66 coupe.
There you go. That's cool.
Nice.
I bought it. When I bought it, I was still in the Navy. I was 23 years old when I bought that car.
We never talked about you being in the Navy very much. You're going to have to be on again. Does it have a roll cage in it and everything, or are the race cars gone?
No, well, it had a roll bar in it. It had a 5-point roll bar in it until I had it redone, I guess about 15 years ago when I had them take the bar out.
Okay.
But it's still got, it's not an original piece. It's a much modified. I raced it in SCCA production classes.
Okay.
It was a B production car. And so it's got flared wheel wells on it. It's got, magnesium Minolite wheels. Right now it's got an all aluminum 427 Chevy in it.
Wow. Sweet.
And it's still got a rear cooler. It's got a bunch of the stuff I used to race with it on it. When I had it redone, I took a lot of the steel bushings out of it and had them put original bushings back in. So it's a little bit more streetable, so to speak, but than it used to be.
When was the last time you fired it up?
Actually about 2 days ago.
Oh, cool.
So it gets about 200 miles a year on it. So
So when I come to operate on the layout and I gum the whole thing up,
yeah.
Can the next day I take the Corvette for a spin?
No. Unless I have a cashier's check in my hand for a certain amount, it wouldn't work. No.
Lex Parker let me take his Corvette out for a spin.
Oh, okay.
So Douglas.
Yes.
Have you? I know, just to recap a little bit about your background. Primarily, you're like our buddy Rich Winiski. You're both Rich and Doug are both full-fledged model railroaders, but you don't have a layout. You enjoy operations and traveling from layout to layout. But have you ever had thoughts of, geez, I'm going to build a little tiny layout over here in the corner or something like that?
It's not going to happen now because I have come to the conclusion that I enjoyed the operations. I get invited to a number of layouts each month. I don't go to all of the invitations that I have. And I have a buddy of mine who lives in the Philly suburbs in Media. He has a HO layout under construction. So I'm part of his weekly work team. And there's a couple other layouts in northwestern New Jersey that are under construction that I've let those two folks know that I'm interested in being part of their work team. So building a layout's a project no matter what the size is. And it's just a project that I'm not looking to take on right now. I did want to build a layout. I mean, I have the room in my home. But like I said, I get to go to a lot of other operating layouts. So that's my area of enjoyment.
Yeah, and actually, though, you're still getting your hands dirty because you're helping other people build.
Correct.
You know what, Bruce?
What?
What is it called? Operatinglayouts.com?
Yes, something like that.
Run by
the LD or the OpSig Eric Smith.
Eric Smith. That's right.
OperatingSessions.com.
But wouldn't it be cool if they, on that particular website or somebody else started a website where people could find people that need help building layouts?
Yeah.
That would be really cool. Because it's kind of the same as having operating sessions, but having...
Yeah, well, I know the OpSig, if you're a member, you do have access to other members that have layouts. So,
maybe they should do it, put it up there.
Yeah.
That, by the way, if you don't belong to the OpSig, what do you call it? It's called opsig.org. And you know why it's .org? Anybody? Ken, do you know why it's .org?
Well, it's an organization. It's probably a nonprofit.
No, it's because they're organized.
Oh, okay.
By the way, anybody that is remotely interested in model railroad operations, we highly recommend. I belong to it. I joined it as well. It's a great value for the money. opsig.org. OPS.
$10 a year for a digital subscription,
and great magazine.
You have access to every issue of the Dispatcher's Office, which is their quarterly publication. I believe, yes, for $10 a year, you also have access to their first book, extra something, copy 3, their book on timetable and train order operation. It's up on their website in the members area that you can download and learn everything you wanted to know from Steve King and David Sproul, who are two excellent teachers for timetable and train order operation.
Bruce, that's 19 East
copy 3. There you go.
Yep.
And a discount for the new compendium.
Yes.
And their quarterly magazine is first class.
Oh yeah,
first class. There is so much. That's like the New York, from the New York Historical Society, or there's a section of the New York Historical Society that deals with model railroading, and their magazine is first class. I got to find out. There is way too many people to interview. This is like way too many. Okay, we got to ask another question.
All right.
Our buddy Ken, our buddy Ron Kleiss sounds like nice. And whatever you do, when you're answering Ron Kleiss's question, don't go, because he hates that. He can't stand people that go, He's a thing with him. He says he has Mind Mount Models, which is a company that makes, what do they call them, laser cut kits. And he has a beautiful display at Springfield and other shows. And when you go up to Mind Mount Models and you talk to Ron, tell him Lionel sent you and see if that helps. He said, say that. How often does someone use the engine cab to run a train, or do most people prefer to be in the layout room?
Most people prefer to be in the layout room.
It seems to me when we talked about the engine cab, is it a work in progress?
It's not completed. I mean, physically, you can run trains. The camera system works. The only thing we haven't really figured out yet, one of my good friend, one of the operator, Bob Bucklew, is working on it, is we have to figure a way to have grade input automatically put into it, into the system. You can operate it, you can blow the horn, the dynamic brakes, the brakes will, not physically work, but they'll slow you down. But if we manually input grade either up or down into it, it will affect the running characteristics of the train that you're operating upstairs. And, the first time we actually got it to work, I was just running something around the railroad upstairs, sitting in the cab downstairs. I started up Keating Summit, which is like a 2% grade. And then Bob said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch in 2% grade. So he punched it in and entered it in the computer. And all of a sudden, and we had already put in, I think we can put in different weights of train. You can either put in, light engines, light train, medium train, heavy train. And so we had a medium train in. So I was rolling along and he put 2% in. And it started slowing down. So you go up another notch and another notch and another notch. And then you finally got to the point where, I was dragging up the hill and at about run 7. And he said, all right, I want you to see something now. He says, all right, he says, go back to idle and don't touch the brakes. So I went back to idle and the thing, and it slows down and sits there. And then it starts to roll backwards all by itself. And so I said, all right. So I reach over and I put on some train brake and in a train brake, right? And I finally got it to stop. So I'm sitting there. Okay, now. So I'm sitting on about at this point, actually a 2% grade as far as the engine's considered through the computer. So I said, all right. So I go to, notch 1. Okay, notch 2. Notch 3, and I start to back off the brake. And as I back off the brake, the train starts to want to go backwards. More brake, notch 4, release the brake, and the train's just sitting. It's just sitting there. It's not moving. Notch 5, and he said, "All right." He says, turn the sanders on. So I turned the sanders on, and it started to move.
Wow.
And this is all computer programming. And, there's no real sand upstairs. And, I end up going over the top of the hill, finally at about run 7 and almost got to run 8. And he says, okay, now he says, I put it back to, so he says, now we're back to, you're on the crest of Keating Summit. So now you're going to start downhill. Now downhill coming east, it starts off at a 1%. Then there's a section on on my railroad of about 30 feet where it's actually 3%.
Oof.
And then it goes into a series of S curves where it drops to about a 1.5%. So, it's not a constant 3%, 2%. Mine varies. And then, you get around actually a 180 and it flattens out and then it drops again. So you're coming down the hill. So you start backing out and, like the real world, you go back to idle, you kick the dynamic brakes on, and then, and then you go back up again. And, it's about, the dynamic brakes will hold you to about 10 miles an hour, as slow as they will stop you. And so you come down and you can hear the sound system in the cab as the dynamic brakes are whining. And, upstairs, here it comes and it's whining. And, you get down to the bottom and you start backing off and the train starts to roll away again. You put a little bit more brake on it, dynamic brake, maybe a little bit of train brake on it. And it really changes the way to operate a train. And, but you wouldn't want to do that in an operating session on a heavy train with helpers, because it just won't work.
Yeah, because it's really complicated.
Yeah, because when helpers are attached to our trains and operating sessions, the helper crew tells the head end crew what to do. The helper crew sort of walks along, and we watch what we call the node. It's where the rear end's pushing and the front end's pulling, and there's usually someplace in there where the coupler is going, there's slack, pulled, slack and pulled. And you say, okay, well, I really want the helper should be pushing about 1/3 of the train. So he watches it. And if it starts to, where the head end's pulling too much, he'll tell the head end to back off. Or if the head end's not pulling enough, he'll say, go up a notch. And you go up a little bit more. And so there is there's no seat of the pants or amp gauges like the real world has. So it has to be a Mark V eyeball, so to speak.
So, what is it? It's a Jeep 40, is it?
SD45.
Yeah. So you, just for everybody that, in case they just got here, is he's replicated the cab of an SD45 in the floor. It used to be it is a garage that's on the bottom floor, and the layout's on the second floor of this barn.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you replicated a cab. All right.
Yeah, cab, the front nose, and all the handrails.
Yeah,
cab cool. Signal box.
And that's where that's where your Corvettes used to be, right?
Yeah, yep. That's where they used to be, and then they moved out to the out to the garage.
Right. And do you think I could ever have a chance to drive your Corvette?
I'm not, doubtful, but okay. I'll give you a ride.
Lionel, I got a question.
Okay, go.
So, Ken, can you add, or without changing anything, can you add more layout to the layout as it is now, or are you maxed out on the building?
I'm maxed out, really.
I remember when I came out there, I think it was 2004 with the Steel Modelers Group, and I was impressed with what I saw, and it was huge. And this past last summer, we came out with the AML network, and we saw the layout as it is now, and I was impressed. It was much. What's the word I want to use? The scenery, the layout, the buildings were more. There was more there than there was back in 2004. It was to the point where I was sort of mesmerized. I couldn't decide where to look. Is there any part of that layout that you want to redo or pull out and do something different with?
I had plans just before COVID. I was actually thinking of trying to reduce the size of the operating crew just to make it a little bit less work between operating sessions, and also just, not have to cancel sessions when I couldn't get enough people. I was going to convert a big chunk of the layout to basically turning it into the Buffalo terminal area. The whole railroad would have been basically rather than being from Harrisburg to Buffalo, it'd have been from about Olean, New York to Buffalo. And the Center Peninsula, when you walk up the stairs where Renovo is, and that would have been a big industrial area. I had it all figured out how to do it. It was going to be probably right before the Conrail era. The nice thing is I could have a little bit of Lehigh Valley up there. They had Tiff Yard. It would be Penn Central. There would be some Norfolk and Western. It would be less people. The dispatcher territory would be shortened. The mainline run would be shortened because a lot of it would be in yard limits, so to speak. And but I just sort of decided, I was thinking about it, had it all figured out, I had it drawn out, and then sort of decided, I think I'll just stay with what I got, and didn't do it. The last piece I actually of railroad that I added I did add some railroad early this year, and what I discovered was I started to look at the amount of cars and other stuff that I had sitting in storage boxes that weren't on the railroad. And there's Athearn cars still running around on the railroad, old blue box cars, but I painted them, I weathered them, whatever else. And, so there's a connection to them for me. So I don't care that they don't have everything correct or that they don't have the right grabs on them or anything else. But mechanically, they're great. They operate well. And I sort of said, I looked at the how many staging tracks do I have? And I said, I sat there and counted them, and I determined that I had 72 staging tracks on the whole railroad.
Jeez.
And each one of those tracks theoretically has the capacity for a 30-car train. Wow. You say, okay, well, that means that theoretically, if every one of these tracks is full, I could have 2,100 cars on this thing. But I say, well, how come these cars, there's a couple hundred cars still in these boxes? And I opened up and said, oh, man, here's these tank cars I did. And I want to put these on. Well, and then the next thing you know, the yards start to back up, And I sort of said, well, there's some cars that like to run, but the trouble is when you put them away, they usually don't come out. Once in a blue moon, you'll think about it and you'll take them out, but then something has to come off. And I was looking around the railroad and I was saying, I got to come up with an off stage for staging. And you think about, when you model a railroad, a lot of people now, if you're operating, you have stagings, and that's sort of the endpoints. And I'm saying, well, the trouble is everything usually goes to an endpoint, turns around, and comes back. So it really doesn't leave your railroad world. It's there, but it's it may be off stage, but it's still taking up space. And I said, it'd be nice to figure a way to do something. And I said, I know what I'm going to do. So the Wilkes-Barre branch comes off the main line over by Northumberland Yard, and it runs on the lower. It's not the lowest level, but it's on a lower level, fairly narrow shelf. And it runs the length of the building, and it ends up in a 7-track staging yard, which is Wilkes-Barre. And I looked and I said, oh, there's room underneath this peninsula. If I put a helix in here, I could run. The railroad already has 2 helixes, so I've already built 2 helixes. So I could put a turn. So the idea, this isn't going to be used during operating sessions, but what I could do is I could take entire trains, locomotives and all, take them down here and park them and have them disappear. And then when I want to run it, I just bring it out and run it. It's already here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so it's off-stage staging. So I put a single-track helix in.
Hey, can I just stop you there?
Yeah.
You do know you're not hooked up, right, eh?
Huh?
Like there's something like there's something wrong with you. We haven't determined what it is or how to pronounce it, but there's something wrong with you.
All right.
He's got a couple of wires on his Dakota crap.
But we all have the same affliction.
Yeah. Let me ask you a couple more questions, and then we're going to stop this segment.
Okay.
Ted, I'm very excited about this. This is from Ted Diorio, and I'm very excited because now I know I can pronounce his last name, Diorio. I'm doing a really good job, Diorio. That's right, isn't it? He wants to know if you ever have plans to add a Freeman's Frothy Water Factory to the layout.
No, but I'm going to do some tank cars.
There you go.
I know exactly what he's talking about.
I believe he's talking about Henry Freeman.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Okay. All right, Doug. I hear you laughing. What do you know about that?
Not much.
Doug is wise in his ways.
Yeah, Doug is wise in his ways. Okay, here's a question that actually is probably John France and then David Owens kind of asked the same question. So John says, if Ken had a chance to do it all over again, would he replicate it exactly or make some changes? And if changes, what?
Good question.
And Dave Owens, are some of the questions not so good?
Oh, just the ones I do.
And Dave Owens says, what would he have done differently? Which is basically the same question. If you had to do it all over again, would you replicate it exactly or make some changes?
Trying to think. I don't really. It works well. I think I probably would have put less up there, requiring less people. How's that?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, managing a group of 30 people is sort of a job.
Yeah.
And, yeah. You almost need to have secondary levels of management to handle that, but which I have some, but not much.
That's what I was kind of wondering. Is like,
those 30 people, do you do 2-man crews or is it 30 people?
Well, I do sometimes if somebody's new up here, I'll put them with somebody as a 2-man crew.
Yes.
Usually what I do is I'll say, and they usually determine between them, but usually here, you run the train, I'll be the conductor.
Right.
Because you're trying to learn a brand new territory. The guy hands you this pack of car cards. You have, with names on there, you have no idea where they are, or anything about the car card system. So you usually have somebody that at least knows the territory and also knows what to expect.
Yeah, well, when I come, I'm operating by myself and I'm gumming up the whole works.
Okay.
And then you know what you're going to say? You know what? Why don't you go down and drive the Corvette for an hour or so?
No, I think I'll say, why don't you get down and sit in the simulator?
Show them videos.
Yeah.
And we can lock the doors.
Last question. How do you control dust in the layout room? That's from Alex. That's from Alex Mantle.
Okay. Basically, the room is all the aisles are carpeted, which helps. That traps a lot of dust. Once a month, I run a vacuum cleaner around the carpet, to pick any dust up. Has a drop ceiling, heavily insulated, and basically, I have a couple of those little mini vacs that I run around, for scenery and buildings and such. And for the track itself, Atlas did a vacuum car years ago. It was one of the European ones, and I discovered you had to redo the electrical pickup for the wheel sets because the dirt sort of made them not work. But I'll put a pair of locomotives out there and usually vacuum the track and clean the track at the same time. It's not too bad. I mean, after a number of years, you'll notice it on building roofs, things like that on the top of cars and odds and ends. But usually as long as you keep the track clear. The biggest thing I can say really is the more you run the layout, the less problems you're going to have with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that seems to always be the same. There actually is a vacuum car. I never even knew the Atlas had a vacuum car.
Yeah.
Wow. And what's it got, a little motor in it? And it sucks.
Yeah, it's got a little fan motor in it. And, it's got a little hatch. It's got like some screening in it to let the air out. And and once you put it out there, you put it on the railroad the first time when you haven't ever done it before, you'll go 50 feet and all of a sudden you say, hey, this thing's not running. And you open it up and it is full of dust. And you clean the motor out, you put it back on, and it takes a while for it to get everything clean. It's amazing how much dust is up there. You can't even see it. So
now, do you do anything special for your track, or is it just basically the vacuum and
vacuum? And I have some cars that have the little masonite pads underneath them.
Okay, yeah.
Which they tend to clean things. I try and keep after the rolling stock. I mean, there's probably cars up there with dirty wheels on them.
Yeah.
But like all the cabin car fleet that I have, the caboose fleet for other people, they all have a flashing red marker in them. And the idea is they have all-wheel pickup in them. I used to use wipers, but actually I've been buying some of the new Tangent caboose trucks, which have all-wheel pickup, which is really nice. and rewiring them. And it does two things. One, as long as that LED on the rear end is flashing, I know that the car is picking up, which means it's also showing up on the signal system as the rear end of the train. And it also, you can keep an eye on it. Sometimes you can tell when the track's dirty. So,
right. And that ties in. You talked about where you occasionally you'll pull a fleet of cars out, send them up to Buffalo for servicing. So that's when you go over them, clean wheels, and I assume you do something similar with the motive power, run them in now and then for cleaning.
Yeah, I have a bunch of locomotives. They're on a schedule, so to speak. So I say, okay, well, I'll pull a set off, and I have a sheet of, I have a little book. I say this one, if an engine has a problem, you pull it off, you deal with the problems. But these are cleaned. I have a lot of trains, power that runs like on unit trains. It goes back and forth. So I'll say, okay, well, I'm going to pull this, a 30. You got 2 6-axles and 30 hoppers and a caboose. Between sessions, I'll clean the wheels on the locomotives, clean all the wheels on the cars, and then on the car cards I use for the unit trains is just a yellow card with a separate waybill in it, and basically it's just a 2-sided waybill that says it's either loaded or empty, but it also has an area to mark where it was shopped, and I'll usually put like WC wheels clean and a date, and usually you can do them about every 2 years. So,
so it's kind of like your FRA inspection cards.
Yeah. I mean, it does require, that when you don't want to have, okay, well, this one start and stop and the headlights flashing, or this one derail. I mean, there's still stuff that's going to happen, but the idea is to have have it run as well as it can run. It requires some maintenance. So, and that just comes with the territory.
Okay, we're going to finish with this segment with this, unless you had something else, Bruce, you wanted to say.
No, I just we talked about the first question stuff, but the general question out of the chat tonight was keeping up the motivation to keep this thing going. And you say you work on it quite frequently, a fair number of hours a week. But do you ever get a day where you go, "Oh, geez, really again?" Or you're just got the mindset and just keep plugging away?
Yeah. I mean, I don't, that, or sometimes I just don't go upstairs. And usually, one of the jokes around here is, I have 11 acres here, and I cut my own grass. And they always, the one field out here I have is about 800 feet long. So, you start at one end, you go 800 feet, and you make a 180, you go 800 feet. Well, I can do thinking. So let's thunk while mowing. And they always say, I come in and says, "Hey," I says, "Oh, now what's new?" I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, he's been mowing again." And they always say that when I'm out mowing, that that's when all these new ideas come up. So,
wow.
But there are times when I just don't go upstairs.
Yeah, that actually sounds refreshing to me. I think the thing about what I'm hearing there is, like I said earlier, it sounds like it's no different if you have a 3,200 square foot layout or an 8-foot square layout. It's it's the same thing. Motivation is sometimes you feel like working on it, and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
Doug?
Yes.
And all the times you've operated, and you've been hanging around Ken now for 30 plus years, what do you feel is like the one thing that you've taken away from the opportunity to be around the layout and be around Ken and all that?
That Ken has created a rail transportation system in miniature, and he has afforded a number of us the opportunity to be regulars, as well as folks that they're there for a while and then they can't make it anymore, or folks that have just passed through. But having done many things in the rail industry and seeing how Ken's layout operates, it gives me the connection between reality and the model world. And a long story real short, one of the Wednesday nights that I used to come out and work with Ken on restaging, etc., I was working at Conrail and had spent most of the day with representatives from the transportation department going through the schedule book and looking at how we were going to streamline some of the train symbols, particularly the merchandise freight trains. I got to Ken's that night, and he had a big whiteboard, and he had different locations on there: Conway, Enola, et cetera, et cetera. And I looked, and he had car counts under each column and header. And I looked, and I started laughing. He goes, "What's so funny?" And I said, "We were doing exactly the same thing today for real." And it's amazing that you're looking at this and doing just what we were doing to increase the efficiency of what we do for real. So there was that touch point. And then the other touch point is when trains would work, and I'm the yard master at Renova, there's no arrival and departure tracks. You have to do everything off the main line. And the way Ken's trains are set up as far as the blocking of the trains, I told him this would be a great teaching tool for folks who work for the railroad but haven't had field experience, so they could understand what we talk about when we're talking about maintaining the integrity of the blocking of the train. So those are my takeaways: the touch points on reality, the ability to see this whole system operate, and then a big plus for me as I get older is the camaraderie and the fellowship.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to stop this segment because, as we said at the start of the show, Ken is going to go off now. We're going to take a slight break, a few seconds, maybe a minute. Ken's going to go off and have an operation, and then we're going to come back when he's recovered and well on his way to being recovered, and just wrap up this particular part 4 of the Ken McCorry 42-part trilogy. Now, the only thing, Ken, that you need to know by now, by when we come back, which will be probably 6 to 7 weeks from now, is by now you've let me drive the Corvette.
Okay.
And you know how that happened?
No, how did it happen?
You know when you have an operation just before you go under, everything's kind of really foggy and fuzzy. And somebody came up to you, and just as you were about to go under, they went, "Hey, can I drive the Corvette?" And you went, "What? What? Yeah, sure." And then you went under. That was me.
No, all you'd hear from me is a laughing.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Turn your camera off. Turn your camera off, Ken. We don't want to see you.
All right. Goodbye.
So we've had a long, extended intermission, and I played "Let's Go to the Lobby." I played the "Let's Go to the Lobby" song, and because we finished, we were in the middle of part 4. We did about an hour and 20 minutes or so of part 4, and then we knew that our hero, Ken McCorry, had to go off to the hospital and have an operation. So how long has it been since we talked? Like a month and a half, maybe? About that, I guess.
Yeah, well, it was 5 weeks ago from my operation.
Yeah, and it was about a week before that we got together and did episode 4 of the Ken McCorry 37-part trilogy.
Yeah.
And so then we decided that after we would stop, and then we would come back after the operation and finish up, partly to see how our hero Ken is doing, and then finish up with any odds and ends that we have, because it's been 4 parts, and we got to let somebody else have a turn now. Have you heard that any? There's been 2 of them have been released. Ken, have you listened to either one of your podcasts?
Yeah, I listened to the first one. I found out the first one was out there. I haven't heard the second one yet, but I will probably do that after here tonight.
Yeah, the second one. When was the second one released, Kelly?
I gotta go look.
What do you gotta go look for? You don't know?
Because I don't know, because what I do is I wait a week after it comes out.
What do you wait a week for?
Because it's like listen to me for the second time.
But you never know when they're coming out. Like,
No, I don't. But when they start coming out like you're putting them out, it's
like how am I putting them out now? You're goofy.
I know.
I don't put them out any differently.
It's been a long day.
Speaking of medical things, it's about 8:30 at night in the evening, and at 1 a.m. I have to have a MRI.
No.
Yeah.
1 a.m.
1 a.m.
Oh wow.
And I got to drive. I got to drive to the big guy. I got to drive to Toronto. I've done that before. I've done 2 or 3 things in the middle of the night down there because they run the hospital, some of the things 24 hours a day, and you can say to them, well, can I have it like at a regular time of day? But then you're waiting a lot longer. And then if you say, well, okay, I'll go anytime, you wait like about a week. So you want me there at 1 a.m. Traffic will be light.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have to worry about that.
Exactly. So actually, it's not that big of a deal. So what?
I think.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think hospitals and railroads share that 24-hour they never close feeling, and I think that's kind of an interesting parallel.
Yeah, because it's always I've been there numerous times, probably a half a dozen times in the middle of the night, and for this and that, and there's always people walking around, and there's always a certain amount of activity, and there's always at least, something open where you can get a drink or something like that. So it's interesting. And as I always say, I get to go, so I got nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
So what you had some sort of a cancer thing, didn't you, Ken?
Well, they thought it was. It was
was it just a KD coupler or something instead?
It wasn't a KD coupler. It was a mass on my right kidney. And, when they tell you that, and it was found, with a CAT scan, then you're looking for something else. They just happened to find it. And they said, you really ought to get this looked at. So they looked at it and they said, yeah, I think we really need to go in there and we don't like to do biopsies on them. So they said, we want to remove it. And I said, oh, it's just the kidney? He says, oh, no, just the mass. So they scheduled that and went in. And I was on the 12th of September. And I was under for 3.5 hours, a little bit longer. I discovered that my kidneys evidently are farther up into my abdomen than a normal human being. So it took them longer to get there, I guess, or longer to work on it. They said, I don't know. What are they doing up there? I says, I don't know. I don't have the builder's sheet.
I could see the doctor cutting you open and all this and saying, he doesn't have any kidneys.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, I wake up. Yeah. I mean, I guess I was most of the afternoon. It was supposed to be scheduled like 11:30. I guess by about 1 o'clock, I was, wheeled into the room. I was always asking, where's the robot? And they sort of pointed it out. And then the next thing I know, I woke up and I'm in a bed somewhere. And
that's the best part. I always go every operation I go into in the last few years. I'm like, okay, well, I'll pay attention because they'll give you this gas, but it'll be 2 or 3 minutes before you go out. And and all you ever remember is, okay, I'm putting the mask on now.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing that's weird is when they're taking you down to the operating room and you're laying on the bed. It always reminds me of those movies, where they always have the camera pointing up and the lights are going by. And I'm like, I said, this is like a movie. I said, oh, damn, I'm in this movie. Yeah. But anyway, the doctor showed up the next day, the surgeon, and he said, just to let you know, he says, we got it all. He says he didn't see anything else. He said, they'll send it in. They send it somewhere to see what's what with the thing. He said, just to let you know, he says, masses like this normally are cancerous. And I said, okay. And of course, I Googled it and it said, oh, yeah, they're normally like 82% cancerous. And I figured, well, and then, of course, they make you wait a week. And so for a week, you're sitting there going like, okay. Yeah. And then he said, oh, by the way, he says, oh, no, he says, it was benign. No problems at all. Very rare. And
wow.
So I did not have anything to do with kidney cancer. And basically I got all these great little marks now on my abdomen. I got one big long one, and I guess there were 6 holes in me to do whatever they did with the robot.
Wow. Oh,
and the biggest issue I had actually was that I actually one or two of them got infected. So then they had to put me on, I'm allergic to penicillin. I can't take that. So they had to put me on sulfa antibiotics. And evidently what it does to me, it makes me lightheaded. And so as long as I'm sitting in one position, I'm fine. But when I go to stand up right now, you sort of have to grab something for about 20 or 30 seconds, and then your head flattens out and you're good to go. So, and I'll be done those in the next day or two. So, but the nice thing is I'm pretty much, I'm probably back to 85%. So, which is good. So,
good to hear. Good to hear.
It takes longer.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Well, I'll be 75 in a couple weeks, and you start to realize that, you don't sort of bounce back as fast as you used to when you were younger.
That's true.
So,
well, thanks for telling me. That gives me something to look forward to.
Oh yeah. So,
of course, that's
my health history.
75 is like 30 years off for me, so I'm good.
Oh hell, you got no problems.
Boy.
And if you believe that, I got a bridge I want to sell you.
Bridge, yeah.
Well, that's good news, though. That said it all as easy as it did. So it was a good thing to go, and it was a good thing to find out there's nothing going on. And here's a tip for all you kids out there. Here's a pro tip about cancer. And I think I'll be interested, Ken, and see if you back me up on this. But this is my pro tip about having cancer. Do not, under any circumstances, Google it to see what it is you have or see what there is to tell you about on the internet.
Yes, don't do that.
No, that'll only make you feel much worse.
Yes.
And half of what you read isn't true, and the other half is nothing but doom and gloom.
Yeah, you see that, and it's like, okay, where's the closest bridge I can jump off of right now?
Exactly. That's all it is doom and gloom on Google when it comes to that, and it's like,
yeah, but I did it, and but I took it with a grain of salt. How's that?
Yeah,
I've learned.
There you go. That's good.
One of the benefits of being older.
So whereabouts are we with the layout then? Are you planning to have another operating session, or?
Yeah, I'm hoping to have one in November. So I have an open house scheduled. I decided to do that, and we have an open house schedule around here. There's probably, I guess, 80, maybe 90 model railroads on it. The whole month of November.
What's it called again?
It's just model railroad. If you Google model railroad open house, and one will come up and say New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware.
Yeah,
and
I think I looked at that last time, and it's run by a couple of ladies or something.
Yeah, it's been run by different people over the years. I mean, originally when it started, it was the typical, you sent your stuff in, and back then we had hobby shops, so they printed out these, pamphlets, so to speak, usually like 6 or 7 pages. Here it is, and you went to the hobby shop and you picked it up, and then when the internet showed up, now it's just online. You go on there and they give you maps. A lot of guys, like in this area here, there's 2 other railroads probably within 20 minutes of me. We all try and be open at the same time. That way somebody can go to one area and see a couple of model railroads. In the, most of them are open usually like from 12 or 1 till 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And, but there are some that are open on Saturday, some on Sunday. There's some couple open on Wednesday nights, some on Friday nights. There's outdoors. There's G-Scale, Lionel, American Flyer, HO, and you name it, it's out there. So
here's one. I found the site. The site is modelrailroadopenhouse.com. Can't get any simpler than that. modelrailroadopenhouse.com. And if you go there, then you end up on the main page. And then from there, there's schedules and sponsors and getting started and changes, and there's a million things on here. I'm looking on Saturday, November the 4th, and the third guy down on Saturday, November the 4th is Guy Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
He lives in Stevens, Pennsylvania, but he doesn't look like he wants anybody to come by. He looks pretty. irritated with the whole thing.
Irritated.
Yeah, he's got this frown on his face. It's a picture of him, and it's a frown on his face. Like, I'm not sure I want to go to that guy's house.
Ah, okay.
I'm sure he's a very nice gentleman.
I hope.
Yeah. So, are you open on the 4th?
No, I'm actually open on the 19th. That's when a couple of the other guys around me decided they wanted to be open. And like I said, we try and sort of, put them all together. And it's far enough away from my operating session that that really won't make a mess of it. So,
yeah, here it is. Here, Ken McCorry. There's hardly anything you got. There's no description or nothing.
Yeah, most people know about it, so it's. Yeah. I don't like to toot my own horn, so to speak.
Well, you don't have to toot your own horn saying it's. You don't have to give any of the highlights. You could just say that it's there. I mean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like the guy above you, Joshua Blay, he's like, Joshua's prototypical U-shaped point-to-point switching layout is based on the towns of Homer, Cortland, New York, located along the Syracuse branch of Delaware, Lackawanna, blah, 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 blah. You could do that.
Yeah, I guess I could. But I usually don't. Most people know about it, and they just want to, what's new? So...
Well,
and other people, they'll bring people along and walk them up the top of the stairs and then watch their jaw drop to their knees. So it's,
exactly.
It's always fun.
Tell me about that. Let's finish up this 4-part extravaganza with a little philosophical discussion. Can you handle philosophical, Rich?
Well, I'll try. I mean, that's usually Uncle Dave's forte. But...
Oh, you've noticed that, have you? We had one that we did an Uncle Dave's fireside chart the other day, and I was saying to Kelly, I said, you'll like this one because it's pretty philosophical. And then...
Shocking.
Shocking, yeah. Well, this one was particularly philosophical, and I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm beginning to think I sounded like a goober, so we'll have to find out. But then I sound like a goober most of the time. Have you ever been to the, Ken, before I get to my question, have you ever been to the Lehigh and Keystone Valley Model Railroad Museum?
Yes, I have. It's been a couple of years since I've been up there, but it's a very nice layout.
I was going to say, is it as fantastic in person as it appears to be in photos?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's a very well done rendition of the Allentown area. It's designed for operation, which is interesting. There's a separate dispatcher. The era can vary. I mean, there's Lehigh Valley. You'll see, the Lehigh Valley, Reading, EL. You'll see Conrail up there, even modern stuff. It's a club in that respect, but it's very well done. It's very well done. It's very well built. Very neat looking. And sometimes you look at some model railroads and you wish they put something underneath them to sort of hide all the trash. But it's a very well done railroad. So
it seems to be spectacular. Hey, Rich, can I ask you a question?
You can.
What would you say the biggest obvious difference is between your personality and mine?
Words per minute?
But what is, off the top of your head, what's the difference between your personality and mine?
Well, you're certainly more outgoing than me.
Oh, okay. I thought I was more annoying than you. I thought that's really just me being more annoying. So, anyways, here's my thought. Rich, you seem, I think, to the surface, you and I have a great friendship, but I think to people on the outside looking in, they would see me as being very flighty, all over the place, like a puppy dog. I can be seen like a puppy dog, and you would be seen as the more leader of the older dog, the one that's like, enough fooling around. Let's do something serious. I think that's a fair. Kelly, would you say that's a fair analogy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll say I feel like I'm probably a little bit more serious in certain areas, but I don't know. I don't really think of myself as a leader of the pack. That's for sure.
Well, it's a pretty small pack. It's just you and me. So you got a 50-50 shot. So the reason I'm giving you all this is my lead up is these Lehigh and Keystone Valley Model Railroad guys. I've seen pictures of that, and I think to myself, geez, I got to interview one of like the president or somebody from the club, because we interviewed, what was his name? John McGuire, who does Dave's lighting, installs Dave's lights and shit. You got to move that microphone farther away from your nose. Dave, he installs Dave's lights and stuff, and he's been there. And it seems like, how am I ever going to interview everybody that deserves to be interviewed about their layouts or their clubs or whatever?
Yeah, isn't John a member there?
Yeah. Like, how are we going to ever? This is a very good question for a guy that is very calculated. That's what I would say. You're more calculated than I am. I'm like, I haven't seen a cop here for months. I should be okay. And you,
I would say I'm data driven.
Yeah, and I'm not particularly driven by anything, other than ice cream, maybe. But how are we going to interview everybody?
Well, in a way, not being able to figure that out means you just keep going.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you ever got to the finish line, then what would you do?
Yeah. I'd spend, you and I would do an in-depth, year-long discussion about life.
You mean you and Dave?
No, you and I we could ditch Dave. We can ditch Dave. Anybody can do Dave. All right. Anyways, that's a job for you. Figure out how we're going to interview all these people. Because I have like all these lists of, like, well, the one I keep meaning to get around to interviewing, and I've talked about it before, is this thing called Railroad Showcase I found on YouTube. And it's a father and son. And they did these really, really, really good videos, kind of a talk show format that they stopped doing them about a year and a half ago. And they didn't get that many views. And I'm thinking, I got to get these guys on the show because it's really fascinating what they've done. You know, it's like there's so many people to interview. Anyways, that's here's my philosophical question for you, Ken, and then we're going to stop this nonsense.
All right. Well, I think it's good. It's good to have people waiting in line to be interviewed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it says, you can look forward to that.
And you'll be back, right? Like, you're not getting a free pass. You don't get to.
I know that.
You don't get to just come on once and then leave you.
Yeah.
As long as I'm the lead dog, that's all I carry.
There you go.
Because you got to remember, the lead dog has the best view.
Yeah, there you go.
That's true. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you're in stock car race, high end stock car race, and if you're not the lead dog, you could develop an arrow push.
Yes, you could.
Going into the corners. So on my question, I think this is a great question, and I'm interested, Rich and Kelly, in what you think about this. I think this is a great question. When people, like you say, people come to the top of their stairs and their jaw drops, and it's just an absolute spectacular model railroad. It's one of the top model railroads in the whole country. Like, how do I put this? How do I word this question? Like, what does it make you feel like? Like, how rewarding is it to know that you've built something like you say, you're almost 75. Hopefully you got another 20 years left and all that stuff. But I mean, well, let's hope.
Yeah.
But so how do you wrap your brain around the fact that you've built this spectacular model railroad that you know perfectly well is one of the best model railroads in the country, if not the world?
I don't know about that.
Well, sure. One of. I didn't say the. But let's
one of. Okay.
Yeah, let's say let's say in the country it's one of the top 25 model railroads. I think that's a fair assumption.
Yeah, that would be fair.
And let's say from around the world, it's one of the top 100 model railroads in the around the globe. I think that would be a fair estimate. Like how do you? What is it when people come up to the top of the stairs and you see their jaw drop? You know, it's like, how does it make you feel?
It's a good feeling in some respects. It's, they stand there and they look around and, because when you get to the top of the stairs, you have a fairly good view. You can't see the whole thing, but you still have a fairly good view of just the main room, so to speak. And and if you stand there and you're tall enough, you can actually look and see at least two ranges of hills in front of you. One right in front of you, and one about 15, 20 feet away, and maybe another one to the one side, maybe 30 feet away. And it works well. A bunch of us have fun running it. It's achieved what I wanted to achieve as far as just the enjoyment of it. It hasn't been too much, with the size of it, it hasn't really been too much of a maintenance headache. As I get older, sometimes I wish I had done things smaller. Managing a large group of people to run it sometimes gets to be a little bit trying, but the railroad itself, and it's always fun to watch people and the questions they ask. They ask something similar like what you did. How did you figure out how to do this? And I can't, it's like, I really can't answer that. I said, well, I took the space I had and I sat there with a piece of graph paper and a pencil and I drew bench work and figured out, I want to have this yard, I want to have that yard, and yards are best laid out in a tangent. Now, Northumberland, of course, has a 90-degree bend in the middle of it. But I said, okay, well, this is where if I put Northumberland here and I put Williamsport over here, and I used what I had learned in the past from other railroads, including the one I built, the townhouse, back in the 80s. And like I said, this is sort of just a giant, that was 16 by 32 feet, but it was around the walls, 2 decks, and it had a central peninsula, which was a helper grade and a climb from the bottom deck to the top deck. So it was, that one had no helixes on it. And, so I already had the basic, I knew what worked, and I saw other people's railroads, and I just, I stole certain things I stole from other people, which everybody in model railroading does. And, it works well. That's what I could say. It's enjoyable to run. It's when, after the first crazy half hour is done and the railroad's sort of humming along quietly, it's nice to walk around and watch all the stuff that I thought out, about operations happening in front of my eyes. I guess it's similar to somebody who's written a screenplay and, sitting in the audience watching it happen. I would guess.
That's a good analogy. Because it would be like that. And it seems to me from talking to you, like, yeah, there's probably things you would do differently, blah, blah, blah. Organizing a large group of people can sometimes be a hassle. But it sounds to me like at the end of the day, you really don't have any regrets about this at all.
No, I don't. No. So, the only thing I will say about having something as large as I build it is when you get older and, you don't know when the end's coming, so to speak, but at some point in time, you have to sort of say, well, how much longer do I want to try and maintain, not maybe just the railroad, but even the property, things like that. Then you have to look at what it would take to dismantle or tear down what you've got. I mean, I've helped a couple other people tear down layouts, and, usually it's a dumpster or two. And I figured this one, I don't know, probably be 4 dumpsters, maybe more. I don't know. But, people sort of say, well, you're not going to tear this down, are you? I says, well, eventually, I will have to. So it's,
unless by some fortunate fluke, you happen to find somebody that's interested in the property the way it is.
Yeah. They'd be nuts, but yeah.
Well, which would be perfect because that's what they have in common with you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. My joke for the guy, they said, what's going to happen to this? And I say, I always tell them I want a Viking funeral. And they look at me, what do you mean? I says, I want one of those helmets that's got just one horn. I says, and you put me up on top of the roof. Yeah. And everybody sits down below and, does the thing with their hand on their chest. I says, well, we burned the barn to the ground.
Yeah.
And they went they just look at you like.
Well, let me ask you this question as we get to the end of this particular episode, and we'll obviously come back and visit you many times. Would you mind, as we go along through the next 10 years, would you mind having that discussion? Because I think that's a great discussion for people. you know, you get into your 50s or your 60s and you realize, geez, you put 20, 30 years into this thing and eventually it'll have to come down. And I'm thinking, you know, if we can talk about it and what your thoughts are about it as we go along, we're going to help some people, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was lucky when I took mine down. At first, I was getting pretty emotional about it. And then I realized, you know, I had written about it. There's got to be 1 or 200 pictures of it in Model Railroader magazine from, you know, 1994 to 2008. So it's like, you know, I'm thinking, well, it's there for prosperity in that particular form. So I was thinking, well, that's pretty cool. And then once I got to think about that, I thought, well, then I'm just moving on. I've finished this project and I'm moving on. I mean, you take our buddy Scott Lister. I mean, he builds and knocks down layouts like as if he's, you know, he's going through ice cream cone. Like he thinks nothing of knocking it down and starting again because that's what he enjoys is the building process.
Yeah. There's a couple. Yeah, was it Doug Tagsold out there and you know, I saw him. He had the double deck with the Denver. I guess it was the Rio Grande, and then he had the Conrail, the industrial layout. And then all of a sudden, here, let's go on, and he's doing some strange gauge or some strange scale. And it's like, what? And then there's Gary Hoover. He's in the new MR this month. You know, and I remember going out there and seeing the Santa Fe win, and now it's the NNW. It's like,
yeah, exactly. And that's one of the cool things you did with yours, though, is you kept changing eras and getting different equipment, which is pretty neat. So, Rich, are you going to go to the November operating session?
Almost definitely not.
Has something happened while we've been doing these interviews that has turned you off it, or?
No. I have to go to a wedding that weekend.
Well, is it a close relative or?
A family friend.
Oh, yeah, you can blow that off. You know what? You know what? The operating session.
You know, you were talking before about what's different about our personalities.
That's one.
That's good.
Yeah, but you know what? You could go for like an hour. Then people would be. Did Rich leave? No, I think he just went to the washroom or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so I will not be at Ken's November session, but hopefully the next one.
All right. Well, there should be one in December. So,
will you go to the one in December, Rich?
I will make every best effort.
Okay. Well, I think that was pretty cool. That was 4 really good episodes of the Ken McCorry 37-part trilogy. It's the first time I've ever stopped an episode knowing that somebody had to go in the hospital and we come back 6 weeks later and finish it up. I think that was really cool.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It is cool. And everybody knows that you're fine and you're going to keep trucking along. And what is it called? Hang on. The Northern Central Railway Buffalo Line.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a crest for that? Like a emblem or anything?
Yeah, actually I do. It's actually a Keystone, and it has NCRY in it. It's a ripoff of the Pennsylvania Railroad, of course.
Absolutely. So. Send me a copy of the artwork, and whenever I send out. So we have for our Tuesday podcasts, they're paid podcasts, and if you're it's a $10 a month member of that particular. Every year you get a T-shirt. You're supposed to get a T-shirt every year, and and everybody does. It's just that some people have to be a little bit more patient than others. What are you talking about, Kelly? You got all you.
I think that's what sets us apart from all the other podcasts.
What, that I'm yet useless at doing stuff?
No. We're so busy. We're so busy.
Yeah.
There's so much to do.
That, and I'm afraid to ask my secretary Barb to help me with that job. You know what? I just had a thought. Let me float this idea past you and see if it flies. We ship all the T-shirts to Rich and make it his responsibility to get them out. What do you think about that, Rich?
Whatever I can do to help.
Wow. There you go.
Wow.
Kelly, I ordered a 5XL.
Yeah.
You don't wear 5XL.
No, I don't. I don't.
Okay.
You sent me a small. No, man.
Yeah, that's good. because you like them skin tight.
Yeah, customer service.
I've never told this story before because actually afterwards I didn't think it was that funny, but at the time it seemed hilarious. I don't know, 10 years ago, they were doing something for the first game of the season with the Toronto Maple Leafs was everybody wears something unusual or enter the contest for most unusual Leaf outfit or whatever. So my son and I bought the smallest jerseys we could find and stretched them on, and we walked around with these tiny jerseys on, stretched to the max. We looked completely goofy. That's it. We're done.
Okay.
So Kelly, can you give out our email address?
Yes, our email address is modellerslife@gmail.com. That's modelers with one L, like, I don't have one. I don't have it.
Really?
Yeah.
How about Northumberland?
No, Northumberland. That's good. That's good. Not two L's like Kelly.
Or Williamsport.
Or Williamsport. Yeah.
Or the Cheltenham Hills Model Railroad Club.
Yep.
He doesn't even, there's nothing. The North Central Railway Buffalo line. Well, the Buffalo line.
Buffalo.
One L like Buffalo.
Yeah.
Not two L's like, There you go. That would have been.
Yeah, it would have.
You want to do it again?
No.
I don't even. That's not. Yeah. That's not. And if you didn't catch that email address, if you go to our Facebook page, or our website, amodellerslife.com, and scroll down just a little bit, you'll see a picture of the moderately agitated mailboy in a particularly agitated state. And if you just click on that picture, boom, the email address is filled in for you. And then all you got to do is write in and keep those cards and letters coming. Yeah. We love them.
Viewer mail, yeah.
Viewer mail is like my favorite. I think viewer mail is my favorite.
Hey, Lionel.
Yeah.
Is this on the Patreon channel or the free channel?
It's
on the Patreon.
No, it's on
the free?
Yeah.
Oh.
So we're getting to the end.
Yeah, but we forgot something if it's on the free channel.
Well, technically we haven't forgot it because you brought it up.
Okay. Well, I brought it up because last time you were upset because I didn't bring it up.
Well, exactly.
Hey, Kelly.
Yes, sir.
I have Rapido trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
Nice. Look at that. The guest gets involved and gets the ball rolling.
No, that's cool.
Holy mackerel. That is cool. I got to send you a T-shirt now, Ken. You're a T-shirt guy, aren't you? Ken, you're a T-shirt guy, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to send a bunch of T-shirts to our buddy David Hyde, who's in the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, but I don't. He seems more like a polo shirt kind of guy.
You could outfit the entire orchestra in T-shirts.
Yeah, there you go.
That would be different.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see, what else do we got to do? Oh, yeah. So if you like this podcast and you'd like twice as much podcasting every week, if you go to our website, amodellerslife.com, and scroll down a little bit and click on the Patreon link, you'll find out there that just for just a few cents a day, you can have twice as much podcasting a week. You'll get on Monday is our free channel, which is where this particular podcast is, because that's where we do our interviews. And then what happens is, Ken, eventually you'll end up on the Patreon channel because that's where the good stuff is. That's where that's where we go back and we visit with our friends and we find out what they're doing and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, sitting on the porch.
I think that would be a great discussion if you don't mind as we go through the years, because it's, you're 75 now. So it's like I say, even if like Harold Worthwine, didn't he live to be like 90 or something?
Yeah, I think either very late 80s or early 90s.
Yeah, and he had guys coming by and helping him run the layout right to the end there, didn't he?
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, he was actually 98 when he passed.
98.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. Well, he didn't start building that railroad until he retired. I mean, at 65. So it's that wasn't a railroad that was getting built while he was still working.
Yeah, and it was it's just absolutely.
Yeah, it was. It was one of the most historically correct model railroads I think I've ever seen.
And by the time he got Did it have much scenery on it by the time it was getting?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was fully scenic.
Or was it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because I think I saw it not long after Benchwork stage. It was running and operating, but I was there at the Benchwork stage, and it was, hey, Rich.
Yes, Lionel.
You know whose layout it reminded me of now that I'm thinking about it?
I don't have no clue.
Tom Schmieder's. You go downstairs into Tom's basement, and it's a sea of lumber. It's a sea of lumber and tracks. And but you're walking away thinking, this is going to be really cool. Like Tom's.
Yeah. Tom spent a lot of time at Harold Worth Wines over the years, and has some of the, he saved some of the buildings and things from Harold's layout to hopefully put on his.
We still got to have that. We still got to have that discussion with you and Ralph and Tom about operating layouts throughout the Northeast there. Oh, we got to
and with Doug Watts too.
Doug Watts too. Yeah, we got to get cracking on that. All right, let's see what else we got to do. We did the we did the email address. We did the Patreon thing. Oh yeah, Ken, have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
As long as it has mustard on it, yeah, no problem.
No ketchup.
Wow.
If you go to Midwest Model Railroad, and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com, and go across the navigation bar to other, and click on it, and have the drop-down menu. There's the AML shop. Boom. You're in a wonderland of hats, hoodies, T-shirts, mugs, anything you could possibly need, and in there you'll find a T-shirt with a hot dog on it.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll look for that.
Yeah, go ahead and look for that. And while you're there, the best thing, one of the best things about Midwest Model Railroad is after you finish buying everything in the AML merchandise shop, you can go into the regular part where they have over 11,000 items. And one of the best things they sell is Rapido trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
If it's N, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
I was gonna hesitate to let Rich do it, and I just said, "Oh, no."
Are you ready, Ken? What did you think of this 4-part extravaganza?
It was interesting. It's a lot longer, a lot more than I thought. How's that?
Yeah. Did you have any fun at all?
Oh yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, for like a couple of minutes on episode 2, you had fun.
Oh yeah.
What did you think of it, Rich? How do you think we did?
I think it was an excellent series of episodes for this podcast.
Okay. Kelly?
I think we have more to hear from Ken.
Well,
there's a lot more to him.
There's a lot
to him.
There's more to ask. One day I should, you know what I should do is go with my portable recorder one day.
Ooh, yeah.
And I could just walk around and I could ask him questions.
Yeah. I could see it up at Springfield.
Ooh, yes. Yeah.
You coming to Springfield?
I'll be there.
All right.
Unless something major happens, I'll be there. So.
Okay, cool. Have you, I got a question for you after we go off the air.
Okay.
I guess that's it. I think we're done. I think this is it. This is the end of the 4-part, 37-part trilogy. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it, Ken. You're a great guy, and I appreciate it. So are you ready, Ken?
Yep.
So at a critical time, you have to say happy rails to you. Now, the key there is there's no singing. There's no dancing.
I was going to sing.
Yeah. That's why I go through it. I give out the rules. They're very definite.
Okay.
If you don't, you're going to get these guys or ladies that decide they want to sing and do it that way. And it's like, no. Or they want to do a soft shoe while they're doing it and they're tap dancing. And it's like, no, just say happy rails to you. And then you have to say it with enthusiasm. So are you ready? Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ken, as the sun slowly sets over the back 40 and we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
Island Busted Knuckle, guests of a Modeler's Life podcast, stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.